is the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the TBK34 channel, where the psych evaluation results are bad and the editing is somehow even worse. So, I've been replaying Metro Exodus on PC for multiple reasons. One, I said I was gonna talk about this game in my Atomic Heart video, which you can watch just by clicking the link up there. Please. Please, it's only got like 200 views at this point.
He fell off. He really did fall off.
2. I'm a massive achievement whore. I mean, I even complete some straight up bullshit objectives in unfinished games because I guess the blue ribbon in my Steam library is pretty. Oh, dude, when I die, I genuinely hope they cut my brain open and see what the fuck was wrong with me. And 3, after playing nothing but Isaac and Apex for a while, I needed to give my 3070 something more than just the equivalent of a light jog. Right. Point is, I did another playthrough of Metro Exodus, and honestly, I really enjoyed my last playthrough. Everything from the graphics to the gameplay is just great. In an era of dogshit FPS that failed to immerse, Metro's slick-looking HUD and weapon mechanics shine. Just please get rid of that hideous reticle. Overall, great shooter, especially for a 140-man team. But upon booting the game once again, I discovered more than that. This time around, instead of having random videos of drunk Australians play while I was exploring the wasteland, I shut up and I tried to listen. I tried to find something amidst the destroyed, frozen wastes of the Volga. That wasn't the fucking catfish. And I think I actually did. I believe that just for a moment, I listened to Metro Exodus's beating heart. And today, I want to show you my journey. So sit down, hit that subscribe button, if you will, and let's get into it. The first step was to go back to Moscow, glassed after the nuclear war of 2013, to understand the world as it's portrayed through the eyes of Artyom, the player character. And let me tell you, it's not too hard to get immersed in the game's world. The immaculate graphics, unbreaking first-person perspective, and the almost perfect sound design really bring the Metro to life. I mean, you can practically smell the loneliness and regret out here. Despite decades of human presence down here, cobwebs and pre-war structures that no one ever cleared block your path. Your gunshots echo through the derelict corridors. Even the frozen manholes seem to want to prevent you from going back home because they know what's left of civilization looks like Birmingham after a civil war. No, Artyom's right, only fascism seems to strive down there. Taking to the skies and finding a way out of here is the only viable option. Even your allies push you away at the beginning of the game and they don't believe you for a second. A lesser man would have given up, but Artyom states himself,
"Basically, there was no hope for us right off the start. Still, we humans are just too bad at surrendering."
In fact, both our protagonist and the Russian military are that way. They can't give up on the idea that there's still something to be won from this war, even when in actuality it's just the whole of humanity that has lost. There's pretty much nothing left. And no amount of jammers and propaganda is gonna change any of that. That stubbornness from both parties, aka you and your superiors, actually ends up causing a fiasco that sends you on the road, so in a way it just works out for the game. I think it's worth pointing out that every bit of help you get from these opening hours comes from outside. Yermak, Sol, the voice of definitely the government on the radio. It's like the outside world is pulling you in while the Metro is actively pushing you out with machine gun fire. Basically, you're pushed out into the cold, harsh world, alone, but for a few allies. And what do you find out there? Well, a bunch of locals that are completely fucked in the head, that's what. Right after leaving Moscow, you encounter these electricity-phobic people that survive by sacrificing their own to a giant catfish. There's a bunch of idealistic kids fighting a radioactive bear in the forest.
The court will decide if we kill.
Even the inhospitable desert has been reconquered by human greed, as some motherfuckers still covet the natural resources of that region. What's worse is the constant pushback from seemingly everything. The locals try to kill you, the architecture and environment makes it even worse on your comrades, poisoning your wife, dehydrating your crewmates. Don't get me wrong, the Aurora was in too dire a state to be safe from the start, but now you can't come back without having the people your decisions hurt berate you. Essentially, the first part of the game lets you feel how unwelcome you are basically anywhere. So how does Artyom not lose faith at that point? Well, for one, I believe that having his suspicions of a somewhat intact outside world validated must have put some wind back into his sails. I mean, the people aboard that train tried to talk you out of your dream for years and now you're taking massive steps towards attaining it? Who would give up hope when the world's best "I told you so" seems almost graspable? The second part of the answer lies within the first one. It's because of the people on the Aurora. Apart from the obvious reason of your gang wanting to go back to the metro, I'm convinced Artyom finds motivation by having them around. It might sound dumb, but look at them. They represent the best parts of the metro. The righteous thoroughness of the military made me feel safe whenever I returned to the locomotive, and I knew my comrades would be safe when I stepped out to, I don't know, go free some slaves or something. Speaking of your fellow Spartans, I found their simple nature really endearing. I regularly stopped pursuing main quest objectives just to listen to Stepan play his guitar or to watch Tokarev clean guns. Really, these characters grew on me once I stopped trying to speedrun the game and stopped to hear what people calling me actually wanted.
Oh, I'm killing myself.
So the people you brought with you are cool. Special shout out to Idiot, by the way. Idiot, my beloved. But the castaways you save along the way serve my point just as well. They represent what you used to fight for in the metro. Love, civilians, and the new generation. They all carry... no, I wouldn't even say carry. I would say they personify the hope Artyom runs on. The people you add to your crew on your almost 8,000 kilometer journey really are there to remind you that no matter how much slavery, unwarranted death, fascism, and microtransactions there are in the world, you'll always encounter based individuals like Crest every once in a while.
Here is my cave. And this is where I live. Not a palace, one. Oh, here's a bed. So if you're tired, my home is your home.
Speaking of, with how many hits this old loco tanks, I mean no pun intended, throughout the game, it really is a surprise that it's still working by the end. Really, the Aurora runs on the crew's hope as much as it does water and coal, making it practically a character by itself. And for those characters, the main driving force comes from the hope of going back to the metro, at least for the first half of the game. I've mentioned a couple of times now how the relationships and goals of the crew change about halfway through the game. That is because of the Yamantau level. This level is a turning point for the story for two reasons. On the surface, the crew realizes they can't get permission to go back to Moscow because command has been replaced by your average iShow speed viewers, so they just rally to Artyom's cause. If you dig a little deeper though, you find out that the crew also realizes this is a direct parallel to the metro from whence you came. The soldiers even remarked that the architecture is similar, quote,
Just like our old D6, even the lift is the same exactly.
Really? Is it that surprising that the higher-ups in charge of the army behave like this? I firmly believe that after realizing what the high-ranking officers he trusted really are, Miller came to the realization that the metro was pretty much the same thing, people putting up a veneer of civilization while tearing each other to bits in old bunkers. And with the person in charge of this expedition now seeing eye to eye with Artyom, everyone rallies to your hope and dream. You can see this in the desert level, which is a literal dry patch after the shock of the bunker. Damir starts thanking you for what you've done. They're really coming around at this point. At this stage of the video, I know what you're thinking. You've probably played through the game already, or you've been watching the gameplay on screen and you're starting to wonder what there even is to fight for with how fucked and radicalized the post-apocalyptic world of Metro is. And joke's on you, because I've been highlighting what we're fighting to preserve the whole time. I'm gonna have to go on a huge tangent here to introduce my thesis for today, but trust me, it'll be worth it. If there's one thing that studying biochemistry for 4 years has taught me, besides the fact that the pit of despair you can fall into is basically bottomless, it's that our biological world isn't in the least bit stable. I mean, our cell walls have completely different levels of charge on each side. Every bit of material that constitutes you, down to the last strand of DNA, is shaking and moving about in irregular patterns 24/7. To a point, even the act of walking can't be achieved without a major lack of balance at some point. That's why kids struggle to learn it so much. It's basically a controlled freefall. You know what? Fuck it. I'm pulling out the big guns. This is the machine that is in charge of replicating your DNA. That is what is in charge of constituting your whole body, basically. That is the blueprint of what you are getting replicated. Does any of this look stable in any capacity? Point is, from the most complex of your molecular machines to your most basic actions, everything that constitutes you, down to the rules of thermodynamics that allow your life to exist in the first place, none of it is stable. You're always going from one state to another. That's not being stable, that's called going from one equilibrium to another. These sets of equilibriums and how we get back to them fall under a big umbrella we call homeostasis, aka the way biological systems go back to normal following external events. But homeostasis can only take you so far. After too big a disturbance, you can't maintain the equilibrium and you just fall down to a stable level permanently. As my professors put it, the only stable organism is a dead one. Then there's nothing left to move back to an equilibrium. You can't go anywhere. What I'm trying to get at is that any system, no matter how big or small, can handle some level of disruption coming from the outside before completely collapsing and being returned to the void. And now you might see me coming a bit better. This respect for the equilibrium, for the sanctity of life, I believe this is what Metro Exodus is about. I've described into a bit of detail how screwed in the head the remaining people were in this game, but I believe Artyom sees it differently. After all, he's been harboring hope for so long in the Metro that I doubt he's the kind of guy to immediately murder everything he ever hoped to see the moment he sets foot in a new region. I mean, he's not Lara Croft that just murders a random dinosaur she finds in a cave when she's supposed to be protecting historical artifacts. Back to Russia for a bit. Really, in terms of both pure biology and hope for the future of the world, the fact that there are still ecosystems flourishing even after the bombs fell is nothing short of a miracle. What I'm getting at is, sometimes beggars can't be choosers. Sometimes finding stability in the world looks like a bunch of stupid farmers worshipping a fish or a few kids fighting over a radioactive dam. I think the game's trying to tell us that the enemy here isn't the Munai Bailer, the Watchmen, or even the Radiations to some extent. Now you'll find the enemy just as easily as those though, just by walking out on your own at night, or by taking a minute to sit on the side of what used to be a road to just craft a few things for the rest of your journey. It's not the Metro anymore. Your enemy isn't Nazis or robots or weird alien people that can communicate telepathically with you. It's the dead quiet of unfixable death and emptiness. And you can even hear it in the OST. Finally, we've reached the point of the video where I talk about the OST. The main point has been achieved, lads. More seriously though, when I was writing the script for this video, I really thought the OST was weird. I tried to get in the mood of the post-apocalypse, but all I could find was just title themes and a bunch of battle music. All they have is the atmosphere, the things you experience in-game. Which, yes, for a game that aims to be immersive, seems almost too logical. And it ties back into my point, right? I mean, the only time you have something to listen to that is not diegetic is when you're fighting something else that's alive, when you're interacting with something that's alive. Even the diegetic music is just usually Stepan playing the guitar or a radio somewhere that used to be inhabited. Point is, I think the game really wants us to feel as Artyom does. And I think he knows he cannot afford to ruin this last bit of life he's encountering. He's aware of the power he holds, of course he is. He could send those ecosystems back to the Precambrian if he's not careful, quote.
Anna was right. We invaded their world. It's not up to us to destroy it. No matter how stupid it may seem.
He's painfully aware that his place of origin, along with his training, makes him a veritable extinction entity. Death Stranding references aside, I think there's something to be said about the Spartans' training as well. Back in Moscow, you'd sneak up on people to save your ammo, which was also your currency. Out here, knocking somebody out could prevent total destruction of this level. Slippery slope, you know? The game's so immersive that you really believe that the bandit you're knocking out rather than killing has a family. It might sound stupid, but I often found myself getting almost spotted because I didn't want to snuff out some light sources. I didn't want for the raiders and bandits to wake up without anything to survive. I mean, look at their camps. It's apparent they're as down bad as you are. Shabby equipment, holes in the defenses of their hastily set up and barely maintained bases. Really, I never felt like I was sparing a life by going non-lethal more than in this game. And I've been playing radio or not. To be fair, I don't think crackhead lives count as human lives, but maybe that's just me. Simply put, your skills are used in a different, more productive way in the Wasteland.
I would never surrender to bandits. But this guy seems different. His training definitely is different.
In conclusion today, after replaying through Metro Exodus, I'm really convinced that it's a game about having your hopes validated and protecting what little, precious life there is left in a barren world. When you're playing the game though, it is entirely feasible that you could only notice the hidden morale system through these prompts, which looks so similar to other immersive sims that it doesn't help me prove that this game is special. But let me cook. In other games, it really boils down to, do you want the good ending or the bad ending? But here, the world building and immersion is so well done at times that you can feel the repercussions of your actions almost as well as you can hear the echo of your gunshots, you know? Your long years of survival in the metro have shaped you into an absolute machine. Your conviction and dreams, however, they're the ones that make you a force for good. I say you as in Artyom, of course, but this also applies to your fellow Spartans. See, when I said your actions had tangible consequences, I meant it both for you and the world around you. See, if you just go around offing pioneers and being just an overall ecological asshole, members of your crew are gonna leave you. For example, in the Taiga level, if you go around killing the kids instead of just being a good person, Alyosha's gonna get wounded, actually shot by the people he empathized with because of your lack of empathy. With Artyom even fucking dying in the game's worst ending, apparently, which I didn't know before making this video. Some would just classify some of these examples I just gave you as just the bad ending LMAO, but I think it just makes sense from a character perspective. The way I see it, in this dimension, the one where, you know, your comrades abandon you and you end up dying on the side of the road, Artyom has basically lost the spark that guided him towards the good ending. I don't think he loses hope, otherwise I doubt he would keep going. Maybe his fear overcame his righteous side, or maybe he just, I don't know, maybe he just didn't like almost getting swallowed by a giant fish Jonah style like 3 times in less than a week. Point is, in that scenario, when push comes to shove and the crew is escaping with nothing but death and destruction in its wake, a member realizes the absolute waste of life they would leave behind. So they choose to stay, because they understand the bigger picture still, because they haven't lost sight of why the Spartans fight. And in case you think my thesis was too obvious from the start, let me just rebuttal. You just took time out of your day to watch a 10-minute YouTube video about a game nobody plays anymore and that can be summarized by this meme alone, so suck it. Anyway, I think I'm done for now. Thank you for watching. Maybe next time I won't be talking about a shooty pew pew game for a change.